Flashed by red and blue, a cop slams a handcuffed black man against his cruiser. The man is calm. The officer is hostile. The man is also the city's mayor. The polished dome of City Hall gleamed under the late morning sun, a promise of arrival that Mayor Julian Mitchell desperately needed. His Audi A8, usually a silent servant of his demanding schedule, sat abandoned 3 blocks back, its hazard lights blinking in a rhythm of surrender. He checked his Rolex, a gift from his wife for his inauguration, and quickened his pace. He was already 10 minutes late for a critical meeting with the governor about the East Side Revitalization Project. The fine wool of his custom Charles Tyrwhitt suit felt constricting in the unexpected humidity as he clutched his leather briefcase. Officer Derek Simmons watched him from his patrol car, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since his transfer from the hard-nosed, no-nonsense precinct in Mapleton County, and this city still felt like a foreign country. His eyes, narrowed into a habitual squint, locked onto Julian. A black man, a suit that cost more than a month of his salary, a confident stride that didn't belong on this particular stretch of Cedar Avenue. It was a picture that didn't compute. It was an anomaly. And in Derek's world, anomalies were threats until proven otherwise. He pulled the cruiser to the curb, its engine a low growl. Unit 45, conducting a field interview. Possible 10 to 90 on Cedar near 5th, he mumbled into his radio, the code for a suspicious person already framing his conclusion. He flipped on the lights, the sudden flash of red and blue painting the brick buildings in jarring colors. "Sir. Stop right there." Derek's voice cut through the air, sharp and authoritative. Julian halted, turning with a practiced, disarming calm. "Is there a problem, officer?" Derek swung out of his car, his hand resting instinctively near the butt of his holstered Glock. "Where are you headed in such a hurry?" His tone was accusatory, not inquisitive. "To work," Julian replied evenly, gesturing with his briefcase toward the gleaming dome. "My car broke down a few blocks away. I'm going to need to see some identification." It wasn't a request. Julian's brow furrowed slightly, the first sign of impatience breaking through his composed exterior. "May I ask why I'm being stopped, officer?" Derek's jaw tightened. This was the kind of question he hated. The kind that implied he needed a reason beyond his own gut feeling. You matched the description of a suspect in a series of thefts in the area. It was a lie, but a functional one. ID, now. What description would that be, exactly? Julian pressed, his voice still level, but with a new edge of steel. He knew his rights, and he knew this was wrong. "Don't question me," Derek snapped, his hand now gripping his holster. He stepped closer, invading Julian's personal space. "This is a high-crime area." He glanced around at the manicured lawns of the government district as if to prove a point only he could see. "Officer, I believe I have the right to know the specific, articulable suspicion you have for detaining me." That was it. The legal jargon. The educated tone. For Derek, it was confirmation. This man thought he was better than him. Hands against the wall. "Now." He grabbed Julian's arm. "Unit 45, requesting backup. I've got a non-compliant subject." As Derek shoved him against the rough brick, Julian's eyes locked onto the small red light on the officer's body camera. It was on. He mentally catalogued the nameplate and badge number. Simmons, 4587. He slowly raised his hands, the smooth leather of his briefcase thudding to the pavement. "You're under arrest for obstruction." The cold steel of the handcuffs bit into Julian's wrists. Derek ratcheted them a notch tighter than necessary, grinding the metal against his Rolex and wedding band. The conflict had just begun. "Is this really necessary?" Julian asked, his voice a low, steady current in the rising tide of humiliation. The handcuffs dug painfully into his flesh, a crude violation against the backdrop of his tailored suit. "That's for me to determine," Derek grunted, his hands beginning a rough, invasive pat-down. He pulled Julian's phone from his suit pocket, the screen lighting up with an incoming call from the governor's office before he silenced it. Expensive phone. Nice watch, too. His voice was laced with a sneering insinuation. How exactly does someone like you afford these things? Julian stared straight ahead at the brick wall, his dignity a shield. Officer, I am formally requesting to know the specific charges against me. Big words from a guy in cuffs, Derek smirked, emptying the contents of Julian's pockets onto the hood of the cruiser. A wallet, keys, a silver pen, and a small, elegant letter opener. Well, what do we have here? He said, holding up the letter opener triumphantly. Carrying a concealed weapon, too. That's a letter opener, Julian clarified, his patience wearing thin. It was in my briefcase, which is not concealed. A small crowd was beginning to form, drawn by the flashing lights. A woman in a postal uniform took a hesitant step forward. Sir, is everything okay here? Derek's hand reflexively moved to his holster. Ma'am, step back. This is official police business. Julian seized the moment, his voice clear and projecting for the onlookers and their raised phones. It's all right. Please, keep recording, but stay back for your own safety. Derek grabbed Julian's arm, yanking him toward the patrol car. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say. I understand my rights completely, Julian interrupted, making direct eye contact with Derek's body camera. And I am exercising my right to know the charges. Derek's grip tightened. Obstruction. Disorderly conduct. And possession of a concealed weapon. That enough for you, smart guy? He shoved Julian against the car. Spread your legs. Wider. He kicked Julian's ankle to force his stance wider than necessary. As Derek's hands moved over his body, Julian closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. The mayor's training in de-escalation, ironically implemented for his own police force last year, was now a tool for personal survival. Nothing to say now. Derek taunted, his breath hot on Julian's neck. Not so educated with your face against my car, are you? He finally pulled out Julian's wallet, flipping past the prominent, gold-sealed city ID card to count the cash. $300. Lot of cash to be carrying. How'd you come by this? It's not illegal to carry cash, officer. It is when it's suspicious, Derek countered, his thumb finally landing on the ID. He stared at it, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face before it hardened again into suspicion. This looks fake. Just as he said it, Julian saw his opportunity. He was entitled to one phone call. And he knew exactly who to call, and exactly what to say. He wouldn't reveal his identity. Not yet. He would let the system he built prove its own worth. Officer, Julian said calmly. Before you transport me, I am requesting my legal right to make one phone call. Derek laughed, a short, sharp bark of derision. You watch too many cop shows. You get your call at the station. A second patrol car slid to a stop behind them. A younger officer, Rodriguez, stepped out, his eyes immediately scanning the tense scene, a well-dressed black man in handcuffs, a hostile senior officer, and a growing crowd of phone-wielding citizens. What's the situation, Derek? Rodriguez asked, his tone professionally neutral. Got a suspect here acting squirrely. Resisting, carrying a weapon, probably using a fake ID, Derek said, waving him away from Julian. Rodriguez glanced at Julian's calm demeanor, then at the unnecessarily tight handcuffs. Something felt wrong. As the officers conferred, Julian caught the eye of a young woman in the crowd, a city hall intern he recognized. He spoke just loudly enough for her to hear. Please call City Hall, extension 001. Tell them the mayor needs assistance. Her eyes widened in recognition before she nodded and melted back into the crowd. The radio on both officers' shoulders crackled to life. Central dispatch to units 45 and 37. Be advised, the chief of police is en route to your location. Hold your position. Take no further action. Derek's hand froze on the patrol car door. What the hell, he muttered. Dispatch, Unit 45, what's the chief doing responding to a routine stop? Rodriguez used the distraction to subtly loosen Julian's cuffs by one notch. Sir, I don't know what's happening, but something's not right, he whispered. Julian gave him a slight, appreciative nod. Unit 45, follow instructions. Hold position, the dispatcher's voice came back, firm and unyielding. Frustration flushed Derek's face. He turned back to Julian. Who the hell are you? I believe I'm entitled to make that call now, Julian responded evenly. Derek, maybe we should just wait, Rodriguez urged. I've got this, Derek snapped, but he reluctantly retrieved Julian's phone. One call. Make it quick. Julian dialed his chief of staff, his tone deliberately casual. Hey, it's me. Yeah, I'm running a little late. Having some car trouble down here near Cedar and 5th. He paused. No, don't worry about sending a car. Officer Simmons is here helping me out. Badge number 4587. He let the numbers hang in the air. Could you do me a favor? Let the governor know I'll be delayed, and maybe pull up file, Protocol 7 for my review when I get in. Thanks. He handed the phone back. Derek had no idea that Protocol 7 was the city's emergency designation for a high-level official under duress, a silent alarm that triggered immediate legal counsel, police chief notification, and media management. Derek's paranoia flared. You set this up somehow. What is this, some kind of ambush? He grabbed Julian's arm with renewed force. We're not waiting for this circus. Get in the car. Now. Officer, I believe dispatch instructed you to hold position, Julian stated, planting his feet. I'm handling this. Derek snarled. Rodriguez stepped between them, a career-defining act of defiance. Derek, we need to wait. Those are direct orders. Get out of my way. Derek hissed, shoving his younger partner aside. The crowd gasped audibly as Rodriguez stumbled back against the cruiser. The conflict had reached its breaking point. The screech of tires cut through the tension as a black SUV, lights flashing, executed a sharp turn and blocked the patrol car's exit. It was followed by a second, and then the police chief's official sedan. Stern-faced individuals in suits and uniforms began to emerge, their movements swift and purposeful. Derek's hand instinctively went to his holster, his training screaming threat assessment. This level of response could only mean one thing: he had apprehended someone far more dangerous than he imagined. A surge of misplaced pride swelled in his chest. Police Chief Marcus Williams emerged from his sedan, his commanding presence silencing the murmuring crowd. In his full-dress uniform, he was an icon of authority. His gaze swept the scene, the handcuffed man, his two officers in a confrontational stance, the sea of raised phones. Recognition, followed by a wave of pure horror, washed over his face. Chief! Derek called out, standing straighter. Situation under control. Subject detained for suspicious behavior, obstruction, and possession of a concealed weapon. He gestured toward Julian as if presenting a trophy. I've got his ID here. Appears to be falsified government credentials. Claims to work at City Hall. He held up the wallet, his thumb conveniently covering the golden seal that would have instantly authenticated it. Chief Williams approached slowly, his eyes taking in every damning detail, the raw red marks on Julian's wrists, the mayor's unshakable composure, the escalating aggression on his officer's face. The suspect was behaving erratically, Derek plowed on, digging his own grave deeper with every word. Walking with purpose in a high-value area, refused to properly identify himself. These people think they can just walk anywhere they want, dressed up like they belong, but their behavior gives them away every time. I developed an eye for it in Mapleton. The chief's face was a mask of stone. He allowed Derek to continue his self-incriminating monologue, knowing the body cameras were recording every prejudiced assumption. The crowd parted as the governor's security detail formed a perimeter. Governor Elaine Hodges herself stepped out of the central SUV, her eyes locking onto the handcuffed figure at the center of the chaos. Derek's confidence finally evaporated, replaced by a creeping dread. "Officer Simmons," Chief Williams' voice was low, but it carried across the now silent street. "Do you know who you have in handcuffs right now?" The color drained from Derek's face. His eyes darted from Julian, to the chief, to the governor, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with sickening speed. The city attorney emerged from an SUV, tablet in hand. "Mr. Mayor," she said, her voice clear and formal, "with your permission, I'd like to take your statement." The title hung in the air like a death sentence. "Mayor." Derek's world collapsed. "Chief," he stammered, "if I could just explain." "Whatever you have to say can be said right here, officer," the chief replied coldly. "Transparency is department policy, as I'm sure you recall." Chief Williams turned to Julian, his expression a mixture of apology and formal respect. "For the record, sir, would you please state your name and position for Officer Simmons?" The entire street held its breath. Julian straightened his posture, the handcuffs seeming to vanish as his inherent authority filled the space. "I am Julian Mitchell," he stated, his voice calm and clear. "Mayor of this city." Derek's jaw went slack. His body seemed to shrink, the swagger draining out of him, replaced by the hollow shell of a man who had just ended his own career. Chief Williams stepped forward with a small key and personally removed the handcuffs. The aftermath was swift and surgical. The incident on Cedar Avenue was no longer just a street-level confrontation, it was a citywide crisis, and Julian, now back in his office, steered it with the same strategic calm he'd displayed in handcuffs. This wasn't about personal revenge, it was about institutional accountability. The internal affairs investigation began immediately. The body camera footage was the first, most damning piece of evidence. In the darkened conference room, Julian, Chief Williams, and the city attorney watched the unfiltered truth. They saw Derek's taunts, his unnecessary force, and something more insidious. "He muted his audio right here," the lead investigator noted, pointing to a timestamp. "Direct violation of department policy." "But he forgot the camera still records lip movements," the city attorney added, tapping her tablet. "We've had forensic lip readers analyze the segments. The language he used is profoundly concerning." The investigation quickly snowballed beyond Derek's actions that day. A formal request to his previous department in Mapleton County unearthed 7 prior complaints of racial profiling, all mysteriously buried or dismissed with cursory notes. Text messages recovered from his department-issued phone were even more explicit. The most damning was sent just moments before he stopped Julian, "Got a guy playing dress-up on Cedar. Watch me take him down a notch." "He knew," Julian said, leaning forward as they replayed the moment Derek first looked at his ID. "Look at his expression. He saw the seal. He knew I was someone important, and he chose to escalate anyway." Officer Rodriguez's testimony proved pivotal. From day one, Simmons made comments, he told investigators, his voice steady, about certain people not belonging in certain neighborhoods. "I filed a report with my sergeant about my concerns after our second patrol together." That report, the investigation revealed, had been buried by Sergeant Dawson, who dismissed Rodriguez's concerns as a rookie being too sensitive. The problem wasn't just one bad apple, it was a systemic failure in the barrel. The blue wall of silence, however, began to crack under the weight of irrefutable evidence and clear signals from the top that accountability would be enforced. Other officers, emboldened by Rodriguez's courage, came forward with their own stories about Derek's troubling behavior. Julian instructed the city attorney to ensure every procedural step was followed with microscopic precision. "We can't afford a single technical mistake," he emphasized. "This case needs to be airtight, not just for my incident, but for the precedent it sets for every other citizen." The footage revealed another practiced deception. Derek had deliberately positioned Julian to block the view from his cruiser's dashboard camera, a subtle move that suggested it wasn't his first time manipulating an evidence trail. "We need to review every single arrest he's made since joining the department," Julian directed, "and formally request all his records from Mapleton." The city attorney nodded, already compiling the necessary legal forms. A few days later, she entered his office with a grim look. "Sir, we found a pattern. Officer Simmons has done this before. Repeatedly." 1 year later, Julian stood at a podium in front of the newly constructed Community Safety and Training Center. The sleek glass and steel facility gleamed, reflecting the diverse crowd of citizens, officers, and media. Behind him, a large digital dashboard displayed real-time statistics: civilian complaints down 40%, community satisfaction with police up 35%, officer retention improved by nearly 30%. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning," Julian began. "1 year ago, an incident forced our city to confront uncomfortable truths. Today, we showcase our response, not just words, but concrete actions and measurable results." The reforms, which came to be known nationally as the Mitchell Protocol, were comprehensive. New psychological screening tools Derek Simmons would never have passed, were implemented. The Civilian Oversight Board was granted real authority to review body camera footage and investigate misconduct. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now head of the new Community Relations Division, stood proudly among the department's leadership, a living example of the new culture. "Change is always difficult," Julian acknowledged. "But as community trust increased, our officers' jobs became safer and more effective. When people see police as partners rather than adversaries, everyone benefits." The most unexpected part of the journey came a month earlier. Derek Simmons, stripped of his badge and facing potential federal charges, had requested a meeting. He had shown up at City Hall, a diminished figure. "I'm not here asking for my job back," he had said, his voice quiet. "I came to apologize. A real one. Losing my job, it forced me to look at things I'd never examined. The assumptions I made every day." He explained he was now working with a non-profit, facilitating dialogues between former officers and community members. "I share my story," he'd said. "What I did wrong. The biases I never saw in myself." Julian hadn't offered forgiveness, but he had acknowledged the effort. "Redemption requires ongoing work, Mr. Simmons," he had responded. "But acknowledging the problem is the necessary first step." Now, as he prepared to cut the ceremonial ribbon, Julian looked out at the crowd. He saw Sergeant Lewis, a 20-year veteran who had initially resisted the reforms, nodding in agreement. He saw the young intern who had made the call from the crowd, now a full-time member of his staff. This wasn't just about one officer or one incident. It was about transforming a moment of profound injustice into a catalyst for lasting change. It was proof that accountability and public safety were not opposing forces, but two sides of the same coin. True power isn't about avoiding accountability, it's about ensuring it exists for everyone. If this story of justice and transformation moved you, help us bring more like it to light. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell to join our community dedicated to uncovering the truth. Give this video a thumbs up to help our mission reach others. And in the comments below, let us know your thoughts. What does real accountability look like to you? Please comment with respect for everyone's perspective. This is how change begins.